Justin Mckee. For you guys that don't know, let me introduce you real quick. I'm sure everybody already knows.
Wait a minute. There wasn't a 3, 2, 1 or none of this stuff. And
We are not professionals, Justin. This is...
neither am I. I was hoping when I got here that I would see all the fancy stuff.
You're lying. Listen, I'm going to tell you guys, I'm excited for this because we've talked about doing this for I don't know how long. We were able to do some of these podcast sermons in Texas, and they were a huge hit. But that was actually your idea. You and I had this conversation that said if there was a way to capture a sermon that was more conversational, and that idea birthed that series. It was the Fertile Soil series. So to have you here is, I mean, it feels like a completion of that idea. For you to be the first one to do a sermon right here. Thank you for coming.
I'm honored.
Tell me what's your official title?
My official title, I guess professionally?
Sure.
I am the host of the Cowboy Channel. I host a lot of programming on the Cowboy Channel, especially rodeos. My primary show is Pro Rodeo Tonight on Saturday nights that I co-produced with a young lady named Carly Peterson. And we come up with the ideas and make them happen. We tell the stories of the personalities of rodeo.
So that segues. The series for July, here's what we're covering, is, and I haven't given it a name yet because I'm not a real preacher, but the dreams that God puts in people's lives. And here's the verse, and I'm going to read it real quick because this is going to be the same verse. Instead of going further into it, this is the verse that we'll kind of base the entire series on. It's in Exodus chapter 12. It says, the Egyptians urged the people to hurry and leave the country, leaving Egypt, for otherwise they said, we will all die. There was such an urgency to get out of Egypt. There was this, we're headed out. If we stay here, we're going to die. If we don't move, we're going to die. So all the people took their dough before the yeast was added and carried it on their shoulders in kneading troughs wrapped in clothing. The Israelites did as Moses instructed and asked the Egyptians for articles of silver and gold and for clothing. The Lord has made the Egyptians favorably disposed toward the people, and they gave them what they asked for, so they plundered Egypt. I know there's a lot in that, and there's a lot to dig out of that, but here's what's happening. There was a dream, and this was like the dream is starting to take place. We talked about a little bit this morning at breakfast, and I want to get your thoughts. I'm trying to take what you said and replicate it, but it feels like maybe somewhere along the line, Christ followers in this day and age have started to surrender their dreams. They don't have dreams and goals. And for me, it was, well, I don't want anything to be more important than Jesus, which we would both agree. Yeah. How do you progress? Because your life right now is sort of that moment, this unfolding of a dream that God gave you.
True.
How does a person that's listening to this that goes, I don't know what my dreams are anymore. I don't know what gets me out of bed. I don't know what my passion is. I don't know what my promised land even looks like. How do you encourage somebody in that position to start re-establishing a dream in their life?
Well, I think spiritually, first of all, we have to look at where we've come from, the history of the church, how we were brought up, what we believe. And I believe, for the most part, you and I were brought up the same way. And I'm thankful. First of all, I want to say I'm thankful for the way I was brought up because I'm very, very satisfied, content, and even excited where I am right now.
Right. It all worked out.
It all worked out great. It all worked out great. And sometimes, as we've learned this last year, we have to go through some rough spots to appreciate where we are.
Right.
And so I've gone through some rough spots spiritually, and I really appreciate where I am spiritually.
Do you think that the children of Israel would have left Egypt if not for the discomfort? Like what you're saying, the reason that they were motivated to go to a new promised land that God had given them was because things had gotten so bad in Egypt. Would you say that's kind of what you're saying as far as you appreciate the bad because it's motivated you forward?
No, I don't think that was my motivation.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. What was?
Well, my motivation was, it wasn't the bad. It was, there's got to be something more.
Yeah.
There's got to be there's just some missing pieces. It's not that was wrong, totally wrong.
Right.
But the puzzle wasn't completed. And so I take things like rodeo, for example. And that's extremely difficult to understand for somebody who's never been to a rodeo.
Right.
And I try to simplify it. And so I break it down into pieces. So when I'm looking at religion and what I believe, I'm breaking it down into pieces, and there's just some big gaps, okay?
Well said.
And And I believe that to answer your question about why do people not dream anymore, I believe it's because for the most part we've been taught that, number one, we need to commit. We need to commit, and then we need to try hard. We really need to try hard. But along the lines, we all fail in this process. We do a great job teaching salvation.
Yeah.
And we do a great job teaching commitment to the church and to our Lord Jesus. But it's when we fail, I think, is what we haven't really discovered in how to simplify and instruct and teach people how to live, because it's inevitable. We fail every day. And I think the church has been very lax in stepping up and saying, hey, you weren't only saved by grace. Grace carries you through. Jesus was enough. He took your punishment. We all fail. I don't think we have enough pastors that are standing up in pulpits saying, I have failed again this week.
Right.
The few times, and I spent a little bit of time as a pastor, not that I'm the end all or I've got it figured out, but it seems like I spent most of my time every week building a sermon around, okay, this is what I did wrong this week.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm far from perfect, but I don't think pastors do near enough of that.
If you don't know that failure is going to be a part of it, then pretty soon failure is the only part of it you see.
It's the only part of it.
Yeah, you
Because-
feel like it's defining your process because it has failures, and social media doesn't project failures.
Yeah.
I was watching, this sounds like a stupid reference. I was watching a Mexican rodeo video the other day, and a guy missed. And as stupid as it sounds, I'm like, you never see the misses. Every time I see it, they catch 2 feet on the horse, they get the dally, everything. Then you're like, oh, I guess it just didn't even occur to me that sometimes it doesn't. Of course, but you never see that. What you see is the successful shots because that's what you want to project. That's just a microcosm of everything in life right now.
It is.
We don't pre-plan the difficulty.
Let me give you another illustration. Because rodeo has never been on television on a consistent basis, for years.
Sure.
It was just the
10th
national
round.
finals. The
10th round if we're lucky.
started out
Yeah.
25 years ago, only the 10th round of the NFR.
Yeah, maybe a rerun of Mesquite on TNN or something if we remembered what time it came on.
And then, for the last 20 years, it's only basically been 10 rounds of the NFR. It's the only time we really get in and watch television. But now we're on TV every day with rodeos. And we're seeing the top 15 in the world who we would see at the NFR accomplish, and win $200,000 and win rounds and pay $30,000. To now we're seeing those same top 15 in the world fail
Right.
at a 80, 90% rate. Even the top 15 fail.
Right.
At the professional rodeo level. And all we see is a success.
You and I were there. We were both there the same day. We went to Steiner's in Weatherford that day. And there, Kristen Vold was bucking horses. And you're hoping, they got hundreds of horses bucking them there that day. And you hope out of the hundreds of horses that you might end up with 2 professional rodeo career type horses.
Right.
The expectation. But if you were to only watch the NFR, if you were to only watch the short round, every single horse bucks. Right. So to me, it was kind of an eye-opener. Again, once you see it, you're like, oh, well, duh. But once you see a horse that just won't buck, you're like, you forget that the cream of the crop is part of the story, but so is all of the rest of it, the glacier that's under the iceberg. And so
it really is the journey.
So when I'm thinking, and I'm like in my mind, I'm going, man, I want people to pursue a sense of adventure and not just run from failure.
Right.
Chase after something.
Yep.
Define what failure would look like short term. Define what failure would look like long term. Because for about the last 6 weeks, I've been asking everybody I run into, what's your dreams? Like, what are your dreams? And it's amazing to me how many people say something generic so they can't clarify failure. And they're not doing it intentionally, but they'll say, I want to be a good person. Okay. How do you define that? Well, I don't know. Well, then if you don't know, how do you know if you're hitting it or not?
How do we not know?
You
ask me that question. I'm an encourager. I motivate people. I don't know.
Yeah.
How do we not, every one of us who are children of God, who have Jesus living on inside of us, not know exactly what that looks like?
Abraham, God tells Abraham, all right, take off. And he goes, where am I going? And he goes, I'll tell you when you get going. Well, I can live with that. I can live with I don't know exactly. I can tell you when I see it. I don't know exactly yet. But the obedience is I'm still moving towards something. It talks about Jesus. It said for the, and I wish I should have wrote this down. Basically, for what was set before him, he saw the cross as worthwhile. He saw the cross as worthwhile, the suffering that he was going to go through based on what it would produce. So Jesus had that moment of, I know what I'm suffering for today because of where I'm going. the Bible is full of that, suffering today for the long term, because without it, I want to get to you. Don't let me ramble here, but otherwise you're just running from suffering. Your life's goal is to not suffer today. Well, by not suffering today, you're leading yourself towards long-term suffering, getting nowhere, accomplishing nothing. Right. You die and you go, man, I didn't do anything. How comfortable are you talking about where you are career-wise now? Is there anything off? Okay. You called me the other day, and here's what was so fulfilling. You said you don't know, but at the exact same time, let me encourage you. You called me the other day, and you've experienced some giant breakthroughs with where the Cowboy Channel is headed. Mm-hmm. But you have been saying that, where they're going, what they're doing. You've been saying that is, what, 2 years now? Mm-hmm. So,
as a goal, this would have been my personal goals for the Cowboy Channel. Yeah,
exactly. But and I don't want to just muddle it up, but here's okay, I'm looking at the camera. I'm living it out real time. I've almost been programmed, probably by myself. Don't take real world application and apply it too much. Like the Bible needs to stay separate. But in your life, you love Jesus, and the goals that he put in your life and on your heart were directly related to a sport that we love. And it's not because the sport itself has some godly attribute. It's because as a godly person, there are things he knows that you love. And that's where I'm saying, when you, as a pastor, when you ask somebody, what are your goals? They instantly go to, what are my godly goals? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no. What are you getting out of bed for? Mm-hmm. And if it's not a godly goal, we feel like, well, I shouldn't talk about it too much because I don't want to be too worldly.
I know. So
to encourage people with, hey, start praying about what a dream would look like. How did you continue the last 2 years when things weren't necessarily breaking open the way that they have? What did the last 2 years of buildup look like? Because maybe that's where people are headed, is 2 years of digging through the trenches of like, I want to know where God's taking me or what I'm going to do. What did the last 2 years of your life? Okay, hold on. And I don't mean to drag this out. I don't mean professionally when you'd show up to work, what did people see? Mm-hmm. I'm saying on a Wednesday night when you're sitting at home and you're by yourself and you've got some time to think, what was your mental status for the last 2 years when you weren't even sure if it was going to happen?
So, to answer your question, my state of mind was, it sounds cliche. I hate to say it, but I was just counting my blessings. Right. I was enjoying the process, and there were still pieces of growth. And looking back, there was enormous pieces of growth in me professionally and relationally. Because in order for my dream to come true and to take this Cowboy Channel idea out on the road and tell stories and engage the committees and the communities and tell the stories of the communities and how they are making such an impact in their region, it took time for me to, even though I've been in television a long time, to kind of put the pieces together in order to go out and make it happen, to build the relationships within the company, to get the trust of ownership that this is going to work out and for our visions to come together. And so, life's a process. And like I said, I don't mean to sound cliche, but I was enjoying that process. You and I met several times during it, and I was pretty excited then about being in the studio and producing Pro Rodeo Tonight. And I even told you I'm surprised that I enjoy going into a city to work. I mean, I've either been at a rodeo or my ranch. I've never had a regular job.
Right. Or been city employed.
Right. I mean, if you'd asked me 3 years ago what's your worst nightmare, it would have been working at a big city at a regular job.
Let me jump in at that point right there, because you look at, we left Egypt, we have a promised land, we don't want this, we want that, and off they go. And the first thing they hit is what they would have dreaded. There's a process, there's this purification process, which was the desert, you just nailed it.
Yeah.
So there's going to be people listening that are young, there's going to be people that are middle, and there's going to be people that are older. I will say this. Every person that's alive is a better version of themselves with a dream than they are without one.
Sure.
Now, it almost always goes, and I love how you started it, which was the acceptance of failure as part of the process. Yeah. You are pre-accepting failure is going to be a part of that process. But the ultimate failure would be the surrender of any dream at all.
Oh, my
Would you say
goodness,
it that way?
That's the ultimate failure.
I mean, that's death. That's already death. You have nothing that you're aspiring to. So,
but why don't we dream? I mean, that's the original question. What has sucked the life out of us to be able to put our finger on, that's my dream.
That's what I want, right. And I think that's what's kind of brewing in me is I've got things I want to do in my life, places I want to go, things I want to see, places I want to take the church, things I want to do at the 1017 Project, things I want to do with my family, things I want to do with myself. And I think the first two, I can always justify. I want the church to do well and succeed, and I want the 1017 to, da-da-da-da-da. But then when it comes to my own personal things that I'm excited about, I almost feel guilty for having.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm sensing. You're like, wait a minute. The departure from God to pursue self is sin. And I think that's what people think dreaming is. Setting God aside to pursue a selfish dream. Versus, God, if you put something in me and I'm suppressing it out of a sense of guilt or religious repression or whatever the case would be, I'm still not becoming the person God would have for me to be. And just what you said, the minute somebody sets off like, okay, I'm going for it. I feel like God put this dream in. Okay, all right, I'm going to accept it. And the first thing they do is they run into failure or difficulty, and they take that as a sign. It's like a spiritual sign. Oh, this was a mistake.
Because one of the worst things that ever has been taught is predestination. So they run into a roadblock and go, oh, well, God must not want me to go down this road. Apparently, because he's got it all planned out, this roadblock means I need to turn around and go another avenue.
Imagine the damage of thinking, well, if it's going to happen, God's going to do it anyway, versus God wants to do something with me.
Yeah.
Because if God's going to do it regardless of me, then I don't matter. I'm not important in the world. My contribution is unnecessary. Versus God has something for me to pursue.
And he's got a million different avenues for you to get to that end goal. Yeah. A million. He wants you to choose. He's not manipulating.
Yeah.
He gives you millions of avenues to go. And they're all going to have roadblocks. Every one of them is going to have failures.
There's going to be a desert. There's going to be, and I'm using air quotes, there's going to be a city job version in every
Your worst
process.
Nightmare. And most every time you'll go through it and look back after you've gone through the desert, and you look back over that desert and go, that was one of the best things that ever happened. I'm getting chills just thinking about all the things that happened to me throughout my career. And at the time, it was devastating. This is the worst scenario. It wasn't my idea. This was not how I had it planned out. This is not my timing. And now, a year, 5 years, 10 years later, I'm going, oh, best thing ever. Best thing ever.
Justin, to me, and to people listening, that to me.
Let me hold that thought, though.
Go.
But I don't believe God puts the bad things in there to necessarily make it stronger. It's just life. Life is a process. And, we're not going to get those miracles every time. We got to walk through the good and the bad.
As I'm thinking over the people that I've talked to, like, what is your dream? I just want to be a good person. Which is not a bad goal. Listen, that's a good goal. I mean, but that should be what you take with you through the process to your dream. You should demand
that should be a fraction of your dream. That should be part of
what
it.
I believe about death and resurrection, what Jesus demonstrated for us is when you face your greatest fears and you accept those things instead of trying to always run from them, you accept them. That's the death. I can't ever get away from the things in life that I wish I could. Just what you're saying. I went into the worst possible scenario. That's a death that you thought, if that ever happens, I won't be okay.
Yeah.
And then you get through it and you're still okay. That's a death.
You're still okay.
The resurrection, the cross, the resurrection on the back half of that is everything after that is new life, because now you've survived something you thought you'd never survive.
Right.
The death and the new life, that new life resurrection, to me, is what I would hope for people to go, hey, if you want a dream and you face it and you go, what's the worst that could happen? I could fail. Well, you're already failing because you don't have a dream.
Yep.
You're already failing. You're already miserable. You wake up in the morning unmotivated.
Right.
Let's think if there's somebody listening that's in their 70s that would go, well, my day is over. It's my opinion, and I know that I share this with you. When you wake up in the morning, every day that God leaves you here is a day that a dream should be present, no matter what your age is.
I agree.
What do you say to somebody who would go, well, I feel like my opportunity is passed? What do you tell that person?
I got to go back spiritually in the way I was raised. Earlier, I said that the church has taught us to commit, to try hard, to fail. And let me pick up on the next step, and that is we feel bad. When we fail, we feel bad. We feel like we have fell out of God's will. We're not on the right track. A lot of times we quit. But then the church says, no. You need to recommit. You need to confess.
Right.
and then you need
Try
to recommit
harder.
and try harder.
It's
That
an
works
effort
great
problem.
for bull riding, but I fail every day.
Yeah.
No matter how hard I try hard, and I still fail.
Right.
But when I found out there was more to Jesus than just getting me to heaven one day through salvation, when I found out that we become one spirit, and he doesn't just live in me to get me to heaven, he lives in me to give me life every
Today.
moment of every day,
Yeah.
today and tomorrow. And when I found out that Jesus is good enough, and I'm good enough, and my spirit is perfect, what opened up my whole new understanding was years ago when I started separating body, soul, and spirit. Because my body and my soul, my mind, my will, and emotions, they mess up almost by the minute, because all of my thoughts are selfish. And so every minute I'm thinking selfish thoughts. At the end of the day, I'm going, how can I remember how to confess what? Because I can't remember them all.
Right.
But then I learned that my spirit never changes. When I believe that Jesus was the Son of God and he took all of my punishment that I deserve, and he traded my unrighteousness and gave me his perfectness, his righteous spirit, my spirit is perfect, and that never changes. God doesn't hate sin because he hates sin and he hates us for it.
Right.
He hates sin because what it does to his children. The consequences are bad. But when I found out that nothing I do will change my perfect spirit, I got a new life. I was able to set goals, and that is grace. We don't deserve any of it. Everything that I'm excited about, every goal that I'm able to set and attain is because every day, instead of believing that I'm just an old sinner saved by grace,
Right.
I am a new creation saved by grace.
Let me ask you this. Are dreams the result of the acceptance of grace?
Yes.
Because I don't think you can
Yes.
feel
You
like
will
you
not
have a
feel
dream.
worthy enough
Of a dream.
if you don't understand total forgiveness.
Grace first. Grace
Grace
first. And
first.
once there's an acceptance of grace, you take a deep breath and go, then what was I supposed to do here? What was I supposed to pursue?
In condemnation, which is where I have lived for 45 of my 52 years, I never felt worthy. I never felt good enough. I always felt like a failure.
So you burn your dreams on the altar.
Burn it.
You burn it because you're like, I'm not worthy. I'll
And
never
it
be good
feels like
enough.
a sacrifice, too.
Yes.
It feels
Yes.
like
A
I
worthy-
literally
a
burnt my
worthy-
dream up. Look, okay, God, I tried, I failed, but at least I burned it up for you.
Stop. Everybody hear what he just said. Because I think that's what I hear is that, well, I
Yes.
wasn't good enough. I didn't do it good enough. It died. It's over. That was a past life. Don't worry, God. I'll never risk having a goal ever again. I'm so sorry. I'll just paint the church.
Yep.
And Jesus is going like, that's not life more abundantly.
No, it's not life. It's not an easy yoke.
No.
I told you it's going to be easy. What I'm living now, because instead of recommitting and confessing sins that have already been taken care of 2,000 years ago, I confess I am a new creation. I am the Son of God, and he lives in me, and I live
that's
in him.
confession
I'm
too.
confessing a new covenant every day. I'm confessing the new covenant. I'm confessing the resurrection.
So going back to where we started in Exodus 12, what would have happened? I told you today, if I ever get a tattoo, it's going to say Rephidim, because Rephidim is that moment where they said, we'll just settle for this.
Yes.
We'll surrender the promised land,
Yes.
but we'll stay here. And they had no water, and the symbolism of the rock that represented Jesus being broke open and blessings pouring out and all this. And Moses said, can we finally settle on the fact that God is for us? That's what happened at Rephidim. The next day they faced their first conflict, because remember he said, you can't face conflict until you know that Jesus is for you.
Right.
And when they didn't know that Jesus was for them, we have to edit my crying out of this, but when they didn't know that Jesus was for them, they're willing to sacrifice the promised land for a short-term gain.
Sure.
When they settled on the fact Jesus is for us, they pushed through conflict to the original promised land.
Sure.
So Rephidim, God is for us. That's what I'm hearing you say.
No matter what. No matter what. I've seen some of the biggest turnarounds from people that were naked in a jail cell, laying on the floor of the jail.
Death
when they turned around.
and resurrection.
Death and resurrection. Every day.
Do you think it frustrates people listening to this that had a dream, that have sacrificed it? Here's what I hope. It frustrates them because it reignites, I did give that up.
Yeah.
I did. I had to. I hope it frustrates people. I hope people hear this and they go, I used to have a dream. I used to have goals. I used to have passion and fire in life and something and that they gave that up. Yep. Death and resurrection. That death is, I'm not worthy. I'm not capable. God gave me a dream that can only be accomplished through his active participation in my life. What I learned is I'm dead to my goals because I'm dead to my own performance.
Yep.
And the new life is, but God still put that there.
Yeah. It's predestination. You run into brick walls because God has a plan for everything. God has a plan. You know, how many times you heard people go through devastating times in their life and they'll try to pick themselves up and say, well, God has a plan. Predestination.
What if God's plan is for you to make choices and pursue and to live and be alive until you're dead?
God's plan is for us to trust him. That's it. That's it. Just trust him to help carry you through the crap that you have to walk through in life. Trust him.
How much trust does it take to give up on your dream and survive until you die? No trust required for that.
No.
You're just getting up in the morning. You're going through your day.
That's where we have been pre-COVID in our country. We've just been going through the motions.
Yeah.
And that's what people do as individuals. That's what communities are doing. That's why they have gone downhill.
Isn't that the definition of a lost soul? Is somebody who has just surrendered and given up and they're just surviving the day to day with no thought towards the future?
That's right. And here's something that's hopeful. If teachers would teach more about failure and that it's part of the process and admit that they've gone through these failures, isn't it inspiring? Then putting on a front and an image of perfectness and holiness, which actually it's a facade, it's fake, it's self-righteousness. It's just self-righteousness, which is
here's how I did it.
We do.
You try to do it, but you're not getting the whole picture of that person's life anyway.
No.
Well, in life, Justin Davis said this. He said, I can't get over the verse that says life more abundantly. Maybe it's Garrett. Might have been Garrett. It was Garrett Jess. Garrett said, I can't get over the verse that says life more abundantly. What does that verse mean? Because life more abundantly cannot mean getting up, going through my day, having to anesthetize myself with any sort of chemical just to survive my life.
Going to a job you hate.
That can't. I want to believe that God is going to bring people through this series to take risks that they wouldn't have taken without him.
And use wisdom.
Using wisdom, of course. I'm not talking about bailing on your family. I'm saying it's a good catch. But I'm saying that God is able to ignite a passion again in them that says, I had given up on life.
Yes.
I was just surviving until heaven. And God's going, what are we doing?
But people are living life just waiting for heaven because that's all the church has taught. I mean, 95% of everything they've taught is if you get saved, you'll go to heaven.
Don't fail, die. Justin, we're going to wrap this up. And then here's what we're going to do. If you're watching this, we're going to do a podcast that is a little bit different flavor. We're going to continue this conversation. We're going to shut it down for the sake of time. Hey, this is awesome. To have talked about a sermon podcast and get to do it with you here has been awesome. Thank you guys for jumping on, and we'll jump back into this here in just a second. So we wrapped up the sermon, and that's the work. I know that's important. I know that that's meaningful. I have no doubt that what we just finished matters. Whew, deep breath. This right here is where I feel the most comfortable. These are the kind of conversations, to me, there's 5 of us sitting here. This is what I love doing because it gets to tell the story without the parameters of sermon stuff. You are, for people that are tuning in, one of the greatest connectors of people that I've ever met. I mean, it is like a God-given gift for human connection.
Thank you.
Why? What joy do you take out of taking this person and introducing them to this person? Because it's led you to some amazing places. I want to talk about that. But not everybody gets good out of that. You know people, and I know people that they try to keep people apart because they are the link. You know, like they write themselves into friendships of like, you can be friends with this person, but only if I'm involved in, you know.
That's weird.
How did you learn to connect point A to point B with people?
I never even thought of that before.
You're telling me that I'm the first person to have told you that.
That I'm a connector, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, but I am.
No, it's easy to see. Steve Stone, we've had this conversation. Steve is that way. Steve knows everybody, But he doesn't try to keep everybody to himself. He takes great joy out of, you need to know so-and-so.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you are tremendous at that.
Wow. First of all, thank you. That is a huge compliment, and I receive it because almost unconsciously or subconsciously, that I do it every day. I've always said that I don't know much about anything, but I know lots of people. And among the network of people, I can find the answer to anything. I don't know much about anything, but I know people that do. And I've always, not always, in my adult life, I have felt like I don't mind admitting I don't know. I think it's a huge key to success.
Yeah.
I don't mind admitting I don't know.
Isn't there, I think there's a freedom in that too, though, because I think when someone feels the pressure of, I'm supposed to have all the answers.
Yeah.
The pressure of a life of supposing that you're the Google, and instead of saying I don't know, imagine the freedom of going, I don't know, but I know a guy.
Yeah. And so just a few moments ago, before we actually sat down to start this podcast, I admitted that I don't know the words to any single song. I don't know Bible verses. I have zero ability to recall. I can't recall a joke. Everything that comes out of my mouth, I have no idea what I'm saying until after it comes out.
Does that ever scare you?
Now, fortunately,
It scares my wife.
Fortunately, I've got Jesus, and he's got a filter,
Right.
and it works out pretty good for me.
Do you remember Jamarcus Russell? He was the #1 draft pick out of LSU. The Raiders drafted him. Do you remember this guy? And they sent him home with a DVD of all the plays, and they said, watch it and bring it back the next day. And he kind of wasn't doing very well. He comes back the next day, and they go, what'd you think? And he's like, man, look good. And they're like, it was blank. And there was like this big embarrassing scandal for the #1 draft pick. He got cut.
Yeah, I remember the story.
But I think what's interesting to me is I wish...
Because he wasn't honest.
Yeah. And I think that if you were to find somebody with the talent of somebody like Jamarcus Russell, but go, okay, if you're not good at memorizing stuff, let's see if there's another way around.
Yeah.
I've always thought...
There's always another way around.
There has to be.
Every time.
But we live in a world that says you have to know all the answers or you're not useful. And you have found that if you are willing to connect...
I've got other gifts.
Yeah.
I have gifts that are, to me, for my personality, way more fun to use than memorization.
Well, and connections.
It's connections.
Being a connector is a gift. Yeah. So you tell me, you kind of give me the no-go. You told me a story about connecting two people last week at Reno, that this person had the ability to be a blessing to this person that you knew that you wanted to be a blessing to, and you found him out of a crowd of 3,000 people, or we can avoid names if that would be better. But you have the ability to walk into a crowd of people and see things that other people don't see.
That's true.
As a direct result of being a connector.
I can literally look at a crowd of 10,000 people because I've announced rodeos with those kind of crowds my whole career, and almost see the needs of people. I can see who's hurting almost. I mean, and that sounds, spooky probably for some people.
I think it would sound weird to people that that's not their gift, but for people that it is, you go, yeah, I can kind of understand that.
Yeah, I know what that crowd needs to hear. Based on what the circumstances are in the arena at any given time, I know what they need to hear right now. So
there's a sensory versus a thinking, like in the personality profile type stuff. There are people who can sense what's happening, and they have to be in the environment because they're based on their sensory. They have to be feeling what's happening in the moment, and I would say that's for sure you. I feel like I'm that way. Yep. There are people like my wife that think through things. They can almost see it like in advance, whereas I almost have to be in it. It's like I can't really tell you what it's going to look like until I see it. So that comes in. Let's bring that into your life. You're here because you just left Reno. You're on your way to announce the rodeo at St. Paul. You had a couple day layover. That's why you're here. How did you go from steer roper, Cheyenne Frontier Days record holder, fast time record holder, arena record holder, a record that will stand forever? You can tell the story you want. To kind of, what would you say? You're one of the top 5 most influential people in all of rodeo media, easily, maybe higher than that. I'm being generous. How? Because being a human connector is not that important when you're a steer roper.
True.
It's fun. I mean, it's like you have
That's
friends.
true.
But God transitioned you to a dream that was not necessarily had a rope in your hand, but it was still around the same culture of people. Do you feel, it's not really a question for him. We'll get to that. Do you feel more fulfilled now in the role that you've got than you did early on?
I feel more fulfilled in this role than anything I've ever done by far. And I'm not sure if I'm going to answer your question. Of course, I'm not sure what the question is, but anyway.
I was just talking.
Let me say this. I worked for 20 years. Now, I really started getting I got a foothold with Bob Tolman and Boyd Polhamus early on in my career. Bronk Rumford, who's a stock contractor from Kansas, gave me rodeos my first year. Bob and Boyd got me rodeos my first year, and I really got my foot in the door.
How old were you at that point?
I was 24.
And you knew you wanted to be a rodeo announcer at that point?
Yes. Yeah, I knew it. I knew it when I was, so.
It's hard for me to imagine a 24-year-old rodeo announcer. Is there anybody else right now that's that age doing that?
Yeah, there's matter of fact, the only other kid I've ever really seen that young, his name's Garrett Yergin, and he grew up in my area. I don't know if I had an influence on him or not, but he's wanted to do it since he was 14, which is I started in high school wanting to do it. But
How old's Garrett?
Garrett now?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I don't even know. He's got to be 24 or 5.
And he's been doing it for
well.
a
Yeah, he's announced in Cheyenne this year. He's
No
getting some
kidding.
big contracts. He's doing well. Yeah, he announced the American last year.
Really?
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
A year ago.
Sidetracked.
Yeah. So in saying all that, my goal was to go out on the road, and then the PBR came along, and I started announcing a lot of PBRs, and the rodeos kind of took a backseat. I still had some good rodeos, but the PBR grew and grew and grew because I started in 94, 95.
94 is nothing.
Yeah,
it was an idea.
I was on the first tour. I did the first 10 finals, and I did television for PBR. I was with them 17 years. And my whole goal, especially the last 7 or 8 years, was I just want to keep building and building and building so I can put together my ranch. I want to go home, and I want to be a cowboy. I mean, I grew up in the business. It's not like it was a far-fetched dream. I mean, I've got the ability to make a living with cattle.
Right.
I mean, I grew, not that I'm a guru or that I'm smart, but that's what I knew. And so my goal was to build a ranch. And fortunately, I was able to buy some very productive land before land started creeping up. I mean, I bought them at, in 1999. We were still at 1970 prices.
Wow.
In 1999
no
in
kidding.
Oklahoma.
99 was the same as the 70s.
It's same prices, same prices. I mean, we're talking about under $500 an acre when you can run 3 or 4 cows or 3 or 4 acres to the cow. I mean, yeah, I could literally make a living, and I knew it.
Wait.
Yeah. Yeah, 1999.
I'm going to have to take a minute I guess I didn't realize it had ever been that low in my lifetime.
No.
So, I mean, you really,
and the most productive place in the world, northeast Oklahoma, with 50 inches of rain a year. Yeah, I mean, literally, with a little fertilizer, you can run
it wasn't
5 acres to a cow unit.
It wasn't.
And it costs $500 an acre.
It wasn't unrealistic to think that when you're done with the PBR, that's it.
That's
Cowman,
it. I'm going to go home, and I'm not have to get on any airplanes. I'm not going to have to go through Cincinnati or Chicago's airport. and I am going to be on horseback.
Did you really love bull riding?
I did not.
Yeah.
Now, when I was 4 years old, I would have gotten on bodacious. And my dad was a cattle buyer, and I mean, that's all I wanted to do. And I'm a first generation rodeo guy, but my folks went to rodeos locally, and I would sit back there looking at the bulls when 4 years old, and they had to pry my hands off of the fence, and that's all I talked about when
you're wearing a cowboy hat through an airport, and you're like rope can or rope bag or whatever, and people are like, "Are you a cowboy?" And you're like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Do you ride bulls?" And here's what I've noticed: you say no, they go, "Oh, yeah, I thought you were a real cowboy." Yeah. So I think
I got to tell my story because you asked me that.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to just end with no.
Okay.
But yes, I did. I wanted to ride bulls, and so my dad bought a miniature bull at a sale barn one day, horns, hump, everything.
Was he mean?
It wasn't too mean. No, it wasn't mean, but he bucked. He bucked good, actually. Bucked me off, and I still loved it, and all through. There wasn't a lot to go to, but I went to whatever I could. And then in high school, my senior year in wrestling, I dislocated my shoulder. And then from then on, my shoulder kept coming out, when I would ride bulls.
So you rode bulls for a while then?
Well, junior bulls. I went to open rodeos.
So did you think of that? Because 17 years of the PBR, that's a pretty fantastic legacy.
Right.
Really.
So your original question was, did you like bull riding? And I loved it up until I couldn't do it. I mean, I liked it okay, but it's just like there's other guys doing what you really want to do, so it's not. It's hard to love something like that.
Well, and it's
it's hard to like the guy that's dating your old girlfriend.
Oh, it's easy to hate. It's easy to hate.
That's right. So yeah, it was a mixed emotion, but I tried to.
But realistically, if you were with the PBR for 17 years, you probably had a more successful bull riding related career than a lot of people who actually do ride bulls.
Probably one of the highest money earners of all time.
Yeah, I mean, bull riding, and you can walk. You can get out of bed in the morning.
Exactly.
What? So that was your goal. You were going to be a ranch cowboy. You were going to do the PBR. That's it. You're going to retire. How does that? Because I mean, I know it'll take a minute. We'll get there.
Yeah.
You are now in a tremendous position, but it's nowhere near PBR announcer, rodeo cowboy in Northeast Oklahoma or Cowman, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So
this far exceeds all of it. So when Patrick Gotch asked me to come work for the Cowboy Channel 2.5 years ago, I said thanks, but no thanks.
You were announcing rodeos.
Well, not very many. They kind of went away. But man, opportunities to turn cattle out all over the country and feed cattle, and because of my rodeo connection, if I lost a lease on a pasture, man, and because I was on TV, I got leases every time I need. I mean, dozens of people can't lease. There's no grass for lease. I could find. Because I'm a connector.
You're a connector. I mean, I would say the TV thing is fertilizer to what was already there, because there are people on TV that you would struggle to like in real life. When they meet you and you're a better person than what you even see on TV. That's what keeps it. I mean, I agree. I agree that the familiarity of seeing you on TV is great, but who you are to me is the best part of knowing who you are.
Well, I appreciate it. I haven't found the real me until recently. I thought the dream was to go home and ranch, and it was okay. But it's funny, the last few years I get really frustrated with ranching.
Yeah.
And, the markets and the small margin, this very small profit margin. And it just seemed like...
As someone who gives away a lot of cows, I can relate to the margin. There's not a lot of difference between what I do and what you were doing anyway.
Yeah,
You're still giving away for the meat packers to make a fortune.
Anyway, so Patrick Gotch called. I turned him down. I said, look, I got this cattle thing going on. I work from home. I set my own schedule. If I want to take off, I want to take off. If I want to work, 100 hours a week, I work 100 hours a week.
So real quick, because I know the answer to this, when you have the option to take off or work 100 hours a week, what were you picking?
Depends on what he's done. I mean, if we're weaning calves and I've got balling calves around there, I'm not taking off. I mean, if there's a window, which is rare, but if there's a window, or I can make it work, or I can get somebody to fill in, but.
So he calls, says, we're doing the Cowboy Channel. You're the guy.
Thanks, but no thanks. And then 6 months later, he called and he said, I just signed the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association to a 6-year TV deal.
Nobody, and if they said they did, they're lying. No one saw that one coming. Nobody saw that the PRCA would transition to something because, one of the things that rodeo does that to me personally, that's so frustrating is they're pursuing a market that has no interest in them and buying space in a network that gives them no real loyalty.
None.
And so
that was a major network.
Yeah. And so to see someone like Patrick have the vision that goes, why don't you come to a network that wants you, that will give you the #1 coverage? And for the creation of the Cowboy Channel, to me as a rodeo fan on the sidelines, I didn't see it coming. I don't think to call you and say we got the PRCA. Did you expect that call would ever happen?
No, never. No, I really didn't. But I did tell him you got my attention.
Yeah.
And he told me a little bit about what he wanted to do, and I said, okay, we need to talk. And so we did, and I went to work for him. And after a year of driving back and forth or flying back and forth to Fort Worth from Tulsa, I live an hour north of Tulsa. A ranch that I put together, my wife and I, at a rate where I could continue to make a living, I sold it and moved to Texas. And I couldn't be happy. I've never been more happy about anything in my life.
Without a dream, and that's what we talked about a little bit during the service, without a dream, people don't take those kinds of risks. Just selling a place that you've worked all these years to put together, you don't make a leap unless you have an idea of where you want it to go. What was it? What was it that made it worth it? Because, I mean, what I'm hearing you say is I took a giant risk.
This is going to get good.
I took a giant risk. What did you believe that it could have become? Because how does someone describe that moment in their life where I worked my whole life and then I sold it because...
My wife and I have a 23-year-old daughter, some friends of ours. They're actually involved in the rodeo in Abbeville, Kansas. They're missionaries. And their daughter went to KU, which is not the ag school in Kansas that I went to.
Up here, that's like University of Oregon. It's Butte, because that's not the ag school in Oregon.
Oh, no.
OSU.
She went to KU, but she, through her hometown rodeo, little bitty PRCA rodeo in Abbeville, Kansas, she got interested. And as she got interested, she got to spend more time with the Rumford family, which I mentioned Bronk a moment ago. Bronk Rumford gave me my start in the business. So she started hanging out, and she's finding out she's interested. She calls me one day. She said, hey, I'm majoring in journalism, and I want to do TV. I want to do sports TV. And I'm interested in this rodeo thing. I think that'd be a good entry sport to get involved in so I could be a broadcaster.
Right.
Or a sideline reporter.
On-ramp, yeah.
Can I come shadow you some places? Well, she did, and my wife and I just fell in love with her. And she's helping me with my social media, and she's helping me understand a lot of. She's broadened my ability to accept things that.
The world's changing, and it's hard to.
Yeah, and Justin, if you don't change, people are not going to. People my age are not going to see you guys as credible, spiritually. I mean, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You really need, and so she helped me.
To remain relevant.
Yeah. That's it.
Yep.
And, a big part of my life is ministry.
Right.
Not in a conventional way.
No, but it's always the theme.
But that's always what I'm doing. That's the driver. I mean, that's the fuel.
Yep.
And so we built this very strong relationship. And anyway, her name is Jasmine Pancratz, by the way. So I want to give her a shout out.
Shout out, Jasmine.
She's staying in her house.
She was there that day bucking horses.
You met her.
Yeah,
at Steiner's. We're at my house, and we're talking about moving to Texas. And she's with my wife, and I think my daughter Cassidy was there too.
Shout out Cassidy.
Cassidy, that's right. And she's like, what are you going to do? And I just can't. This land is part of me.
Right.
I've nurtured it. I found it in bad shape. I've nurtured it. I've lived off of it. It's part of me.
Right.
She says, it's not part of you. It's not relational, and it's not spiritual. She's 23 years old, and she's telling a pastor. I was a pastor for 7 years. I'm twice her age, and she said, it's not relational, and it's not spiritual.
Wow.
And I'm like, right then and there, I knew.
That was your moment.
I'm like, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
What you just did, though, hold on a second. What you just did is you are giving credit to someone that did something meaningful without trying to hold on to it for yourself and go, I just realized and I just had. But that is what I'm talking about.
Well,
that is what you do.
Question. You did a perfect job, because he said, what was the moment when you decided you could walk away?
But to your credit, that's what I love about you is that you go, she said it and she was right and I changed that's an incredible, like for me, I want to make sure that I give credit when things like, so good on you for knowing to listen, first of all, and second of all, to be so confident to go, I don't know, she deserves the credit for it.
I had no idea. I'd still be in Oklahoma if it wasn't for that. I think, maybe, I don't know.
But there's a second half to that.
And let me say that, well, go ahead. Maybe
that might be true. That might be true. Okay, this isn't a part of you, but you're going to jump towards something, not away from something. You didn't sell the ranch so that you wouldn't own it anymore. Mm-hmm. You sold the ranch because there was something else.
Yeah.
What was the something else that was worth it to part with what you had built?
Well, this is loaded. This may take a while, but
that's the joy of a podcast. We can go as long as we want.
The opportunity to host rodeos on television and tell stories about the people and places and personalities that make up pro rodeo. Rodeos are the community's biggest event. It's the social gathering.
Did you hear what you just said, though?
Which part?
You just said the stories of my people
Yes.
deserve to be told.
Yes,
You're
they do.
connecting. Here we go again.
Yeah.
Your calling is connection. I would say that.
Yes.
To take the stories that you feel like are worthwhile to be told and tell them and connect them to the masses.
Right.
So that the masses of people, am I saying this right?
Yeah,
Is this- is
100%,
fair?
100%.
That the sport of rodeo is almost secondary to the people who are
without question.
making rodeo great. Because what rodeo is so insular. From the outside looking in, you could think it's one way.
Yeah.
But from the inside, you know that it's this way.
Exactly.
And your heart, every time I've heard you describe it, is I wish people could see what I see.
What I see.
You're connecting the world to your culture, to your people. Is that a fair way of saying
right.
it?
That's exactly
and
right.
that was worth jumping for.
And our culture is built on godly qualities.
Yeah. Yeah, whether people would
agree
understand
morally
that,
or not.
Well, but they may not even understand it. They may not know that that's what they're doing. But there is a value and a character quality,
Huge value.
That's
in
very
character.
similar and
and in my
parallel.
opinion, morals too. Even though some people will disagree with that, I believe. I mean, in character and in morality and in patriotism and in faith and strength and courage and
everything it stands for. Yeah.
Everything that's great about America, we've got it.
Yeah. Well, and like anything, you can always think of people, because instantly in my mind, I start thinking of people that is not true of. It's not about the individual.
No.
The overall arching stated value system
Yes.
is real close parallel to a life of following Christ. And here's what I would say. Here,
Yes,
see
it
if this
is.
is right. Pursuing something that's bigger than yourself.
That's it. I
and
agree.
the willingness
Having
to
a
sacrifice.
goal,
The willingness to
having a
sacrifice.
dream,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
sacrifice.
who sacrifices more? I mean, fighters, I think you can make the argument that they sacrifice. But when you listen to somebody who fights professionally, watching rodeo people do what they do, they go, that's a totally different level. They are sacrificing for something that they're drawn towards. I mean, there's a lot in there. You're right. There is a lot of parallels between what the rodeo world is pursuing.
And like I mentioned during our broadcast a moment ago, even the top 15 lose way more than they win, a lot more. And so for me to be able to tell stories of, look at how many times he got knocked down. Look at how many times she got busted. I mean, tore up financially, physically,
Legally.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Relationally.
Yeah.
They rose up out of the ashes.
Right.
They got themselves up out of the mud, and they worked hard. They weren't scared. They had faith, and they did it. And that's what people need. They don't need preached at. They don't need yelled at. They don't need somebody pointing a finger at them and telling them you messed up again and God's going to be mad at you. That they need to hear regular people that we put on a pedestal have gone through the muck and the mire too.
Yeah.
And those need to be, and I'm a picture. See, since I don't do words,
Right.
I don't do words. I do pictures.
Right.
And all we need is, most people need is a picture. Men are all, every man is nearly a visual learner. And they just need that picture as a reminder, oh yeah, I can do that too.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Well, and that it matters. That's one of the things that is easy to see with you, is it genuinely matters that story is told accurately. And there's not very many people that have the ability or the tools or the platform to take the picture that's kind of hard to understand and paint it in a way that's easier to understand. As a pastor, I feel like that's what I do. When I go to the Word and it takes me 4 or 5 hours to understand one verse, because I know there's something there, and
Sure.
you're like, I can't. I got it. And the minute I get it, to be able to turn around, because it's not unusual to spend 40 or 50 hours a week on a sermon so that it makes sense.
Sure.
Half of it is understanding it. The other half is explaining it.
Yes.
And I see that exact same thing with you, is it does matter to you. You do love those people. And because you love those people, you try to take their story and express it in a way that people can understand.
Right.
They both deserve it. Yeah. Everybody wins on something like that. The people that are living out the difficult part of that story, and the people who feel inspired to copy that in their own lives. Is that a good way of saying it?
You've done it. And one of the reasons I feel is so rewarding right now, or my position is rewarding at the Cowboy Channel. It's not the on air when I'm talking. It's building those stories. Yeah. It's putting the pieces together. A lot of my rodeo friends will laugh here, but I don't mind admitting it. I'm an artist.
Yeah.
My buddy Tyler Crow lives down the road, and he's my favorite Western artist of all time. And I've told people that for years,
Tyler
and then I just,
Crow?
ironically, I'm 4 miles down the road from Tyler Crow.
That's in Hico?
Yeah, at Hico. And
Do you have an Instagram page? Keep going. I'm going to look his up.
Oh, his stuff is amazing. I'm in his studio watching him one day, and he's telling me about his vision. He showed me the picture that he's using, and he's painting it. And then, then I stop in several times. I see the finished project or the product. And I'm like, Tyler, that's what I do now. I have a vision, have an original that I'm putting together. In my mind, all these pieces on telling this story look like this is first, this is second, this is third.
Is that him?
Yes. Yeah, that's Tyler.
Sorry. Keep going. I was trying to see what. Keep going.
No, and I wanted to see your reaction when you saw his paintings, because you're going to go,
telling a story. Yeah, it's a story. It's like.
But that's what I do. I paint. I don't physically, but I put the pieces of the pictures, and then to watch an editor go through there and put those pieces together, and then it match up with my vision. I finished my painting.
There's a theory that every person is a gardener. Have you ever heard this? That the reason that God made Adam and Eve gardeners is because you go, well, that seems too simple. Except that that's what every person who does anything. You're taking raw materials and rearranging them. This is a Timothy Keller concept. It's not mine. I wish I was smart enough to think of stuff like this. Taking raw materials, rearranging them in a manner that brings forth a new product.
Right.
That's what life and engagement is. Every job that you can think of, what you're doing is you're taking raw materials, you're ordering them in such a way. You take a seed, you plant it, you wait for the harvest. That's
Everything
gardening.
boils down to seed time and harvest.
Everything is gardening. And so what you're saying, there is that rewarding moment, like your farm in a ranch in Oklahoma, you took what it was, because of your effort and your work, it became something completely new and better. Yeah. Where do you see rodeo broadcast going? I mean, if you could garden for me for a second, where the raw materials is, we know the sport and what it has. In fact, I think that the rodeo has a better product than the PBR. It's just been marketed differently in a way that maybe hasn't been presented successful. Yes,
the right way.
So if you were to take your role and somebody were to go garden this out for us, where would it go that you would go, I did it, I got where I wanted to go, I achieved what I wanted to achieve? What is that? What is it? I mean, I know I'm asking for a lot, but what does that look like?
Well, first of all, I'm not the guy that's in charge. I'm just an employee.
Okay, let me ask this question better, because you're right. I'm saying if you had your way, that's all I'm asking.
Okay,
is if
I just
you had your
clarify.
way. Yeah, no, I get that. But I'm saying if given a perfect scenario for you, what does it look like?
Well, first of all, I want to go back. I want to tie the answer to that question to your previous question, or your statement, actually, when you said that everybody is a gardener. Okay? And I believe that within most people in the United States of America, there's an inner cowboy, especially among men.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you think on that for just a minute, I told somebody this week after listening to Bob Tallman for 10 days, he's such a hero of mine. He's such a legend, an announcer, and he's so colorful, and he's such an amazing character. And I just watched him. I was just in awe of his ability and his
what does
aura.
he do? What does he do better than everyone? Because he is a legend, and I don't want to get distracted from where you're going with this.
Yeah.
What is the one? If you could say this is the one thing Bob Tallman does that nobody else can do or will ever do.
Yeah, I can't do it.
Okay, all right. Skip the question.
No. No, you're right. I'm
okay.
saying that he is the only one.
Okay, but what?
And I've got the answer.
Okay.
I said this week. I told somebody, I said, Bob Tallman, with his voice, he's got the voice of God. He just does. He has the charisma, the energy. He's 73 years old, and he's got the energy of an 18-year-old. He looks like the most perfect Western figure you've ever seen.
Straight out of Tombstone.
Just straight out of a Western movie. His knowledge, his creativity, his wit, his humor, and everybody can hear it within 10 seconds of when he turns the mic on.
He
grabs you.
It's like he is the voice of rodeo.
He is the voice of rodeo. But here's what I told somebody. Bob Tallman can bring out the inner cowboy in every man within the sound of his voice.
Interesting.
Isn't that the best explanation?
If it's there, he brings it out in you.
And I won't tell you what I said to that person when I said, and as far as the women, Bob Tallman can, and that will just.
Yeah, it's an engaging.
I mean it in an admirable way.
So
over the microphone, the women are just melting.
We love him. So
loving.
Tell me then, in that, because I don't want to get straight from the original question, because I want to know, in a perfect world, if you're going to garden your vision for where you want this to go, what does it look like?
So we need to believe that within every man, woman, and child, or at least every man, that there is an inner cowboy within them, especially post-COVID.
Yeah.
Especially post-COVID. Because guess what? The cowboys, the renegades, the people that everybody's pointing their and shaking their finger at, saying you are unsafe and you don't care about other people. Guess what? The cowboys were right.
Yeah.
And America knows it.
So let me tell you my opinion. This is just my 2 cents. And keep in mind, I am still a pastor of a church. I'll say it this way. When you see a guy who's willing to stand up and go against the tide, you say every man, woman, and child, there's a cowboy. I don't know very many. Okay, all right, hang on a minute. I'm getting creative here. The reason the term toxic masculinity made its way into the public conversation, the reason is toxic masculinity is an abusive, bully, chauvinistic. That to me, there is such, in my mind, there is such a thing as toxic masculinity.
Absolutely.
But it is not all masculinity. Because what you want in a room, is a man who has the ability to be a man when the scenario calls for it. Yeah. A man who is not capable of being dangerous is not useful.
That's right.
So to take that to me, when I hear cowboy, what you hope to see is someone who has the ability to be dangerous but chooses to be a protector.
That's true. And
there's not a woman in the world that wouldn't want that present.
Like that. Exactly. And let me take it one step further. Every inner cowboy in a man. And the reason I say that is because real men, they want to do good. They want to save the damsel. They want to save the community, save the town. That's what God created. It's His spirit.
They're a rebel. They're a rebel with the right cause. They're the rebel that is dedicated. That is dedicated all that makes them them to something that's worthwhile.
And so,
but the world has tried to take that guy and turn him into the soy boy version, but that guy's not useful. And what I've noticed, you know this, there are women who have tried to take their husband, make them very, very, very dialed down and not dangerous. And when they accomplish it, they cheat on them with somebody who's dangerous. And you go, this is not what we're trying. Like, there's got to be the freedom to pursue the call of God on your life to be masculine and submitted all at the same time, not because you give up on being this is a totally different conversation.
No. And for my family that's listening and you're going, oh, there goes Justin down a rabbit trail. This is exactly where I intended to go, because you asked me, where do I see the Cowboy Channel going? And I hope if you've been listening, you realize that I've never said this publicly, but I believe the Cowboy Channel is on a spiritual journey. And I believe it's because of the connection of God breathed into every man a cowboy spirit, to be courageous, to take chances, to do what's right, and to take some risk, even if it means you taking a shot or dying for the good of somebody else. It's biblical.
Right.
No greater gift.
Jesus
as a man.
didn't ride a moped through the downtown streets.
I mean, I'm a big dreamer. You call me a connector. My wife would probably say he's a dreamer. And
you can be both.
I know you can. My dream is for the Cowboy Channel to show America what a man looks like and acts like. Whether it's through rodeo or whether it's through podcasts where we're bringing God and rodeo together like this, and I also believe the story of grace is coming. I think there's a revival in America coming where the church finds out, oh, wait a minute. You can't do good enough to gain God's favor. Right. You got to receive the gift of grace of His favor Jesus gave you. You can't be good enough.
Would you, on that exact same topic, would you say it this way? We have to rediscover that failure is more of an activator than a disqualifier.
Absolutely.
Because in my life, some of the greatest activating moments that drove me further were the moments of failure where I go, this is not it. It has to be.
Doesn't affect our relationship that was sealed and delivered once we believed.
Yeah.
And and God, in my opinion, God's looking at our failures, even if it includes a lot of sin, going, yeah, part of the process.
Yeah.
I'm here when you need me. All you got, I'm right here. I mean,
Right.
I'm with you whether you want me to. You can't shake Jesus.
Well, imagine a scenario where God is only present in the successes. That's like saying that he needs our success.
But that's what the church is taught.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's
For the most part.
there's a general in your mind, given the perfect scenario, there is a spiritual connection.
There is.
Between the values
This is
held.
much bigger than a sport. This is much bigger than the lifestyle. You know, first of all, I explained to people this. I was talking to some potential sponsors the other day, and they were talking about mountain biking and other extreme sports, and that's where they were spending their money. So why are you doing that? You know the difference between their sport and rodeo? That's a sport. This is a lifestyle. So number one,
Right.
we have a lifestyle that's bigger than a sport, and more than a lifestyle, we have a mission.
Yeah.
And we have a code.
Don't you think there are cowboys in every sport? Let me see what I'm saying.
Oh man!
What you find,
especially contact
this
sports.
is clarity. This is clarity for me.
Yeah, no doubt.
You find a cowboy. If you met 100 bicyclists,
Yeah.
there's a cowboy in there somewhere. They may just not know it.
You dang right.
If you go to the fly fishing community, there's a cowboy. Now we would know you're a cowboy. I've never been on a horse. No. That's not what I mean. You're a cowboy with a fly rod because your values and your state, like the way that you are, that's what we're. Okay, so that's clarity for me. Actually,
So
that's maybe in my life a game changing
and it's the
moment.
guy who's most confident in his own skin.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's bring this full circle spiritually. I am confident in my skin spiritually because I'm a failure every day.
Yeah.
As we were talking in the sermon earlier, but I'm covered by grace. Now that's not gives me a license to sin.
No.
Because
We shouldn't want that. If God is who he says he is, we shouldn't be looking for ways
No.
to sin if it's bad for us.
if I understand grace, then I want to follow him around.
That's good.
I don't want-
We got time.
no,
we got time.
I- no,
No.
I-
Listen, I promise you, this is what podcasts are.
Okay. I went to Chris Cox's steam roping school the other day, and I've been hanging out with Chris Cox for several years, and I've been watching him. And I finally got to just apply some basic principles with my horse. And for the first time ever, this explains grace.
Okay.
And I wish we would have got this in your sermon. But this, have I not told you what happened to me there? I haven't?
No, theoretically, people that watch the sermon will eventually watch this or listen to this anyway, so we still got them.
I put pressure on my horse, and I released. And I put pressure on him in several different directions, and he released. And by watching Chris and doing what he said, and I was just off in my corner by myself, that horse became one with me. So then before long, every movement I made, that horse wanted to be with me. Everywhere I went, that horse would follow me without a lead rope. This horse he became a supple, broke animal. Not broken. I mean,
Broke,
I'm talking about
right.
an animal that was willing to do whatever I asked.
Viewed you as his source of relief
Yes.
in life. His relief from pressure that he can't manage on his own.
Came from me.
Yeah.
Even though I was putting the pressure on him, which
Sure.
I don't think is necessarily a representation of God. But my point is, because he knew I believed in him. That horse knew I believed in him. That's all a horse wants.
Right.
He wants to know that I believe in him. And it was back and forth. He and I were going back and forth.
Well, realistically, if you think about a horse, if he doesn't want you on his back, he's bigger.
Exactly.
Every horse that you're riding has some agreed upon value that says, I think you've got better for me than I've got for myself, or you wouldn't be there.
And if you don't give him respect, like God gives us, he gives us respect. He gives us outlaws some respect. All of it.
Yeah.
And so when we realize, okay, he's not condemning me, and this sin management thing that the church has taught is impossible.
Right.
God
Behavior modification.
behavior modification isn't working. I'm a failure. But I haven't failed God ever.
Right.
I have never failed God. He He is not surprised by anything I do, even though I fail every day.
You surprise yourself. You surprise yourself at how bad you're capable of being. But we don't surprise God.
If
God's
you could
not
crack
there going,
this thing open and see what's going on.
God's not going, wait, what?
Oh, he's not surprised.
Yeah, I know.
Come on.
Now
give me
you
a
know.
break.
God's going, yeah, I always knew.
But I'm not embarrassed by that anymore because I know I'm forgiven.
Right.
And so I become this horse towards God. Like that horse was with me. He was watching every move. He was ready. He was willing. He was on go. That's the way I am now that I heard the truth of a new covenant that is total forgiveness 2,000 years ago, not daily confession.
Right. Forgiveness of sins as a nature versus forgiveness. Let me say it this way. I feel like that when we start teaching that we have been forgiven of sin instead of sins.
Yeah.
Because we apologize for our sins.
Yeah.
You guys going, no. You're apologizing for sin.
Yeah.
Got it? Okay,
One time,
let's go.
admitting you're a
Let's
sinner.
go. I can, yeah.
The Bible verse talks about you need to confess your sins one to another. They need to confess that they need a Savior. That's it.
Right.
They were,
right.
Anyway. So I'm saying all that to answer your question on my vision for the Cowboy Channel, if I could. I think the confidence that we get in knowing who we are, not just as a contestant or a cowboy, but Christ in me, which is enough.
Right.
Which makes me complete and my spirit is perfect, then I've got the confidence to take on the world.
Right.
I want to change the world.
Right.
Because it's he and me. And so I want to just lay that foundation.
Right.
I don't want to make the sport of rodeo known throughout the world. I want to take the sport of rodeo as a vehicle to change humanity.
Yeah. No big deal.
Make sense?
Just a little golden.
Yeah.
Do you know, I was roping calves when he was rodeoing, and he was kind of leaving as I was coming in. So I don't know him very well. But do you know the Coulter Todd story very well? Do you know who that is?
Yes. And I know bits. Yeah, I do know a little bit.
I don't know from a distance without even knowing him very well. I don't know how somebody could watch his life where he is one of the most gifted people.
Yeah.
Walks away from it for his family because he wants to go be a cowboy. Leaves the spotlight. Leaves the notoriety. This year, gets brought back, junior misses one to make the short round to BFI, which is one of the most difficult team ropings. He comes back and says, no, don't forget, I could have been here all along. But his values, a guy like that, from the outside looking in, a guy like that, I don't know how anybody in the world could look at a story like that and not feel like, maybe I could do that in my life.
Exactly.
Maybe I could set down what the world celebrates and take up something that's even deeper. And
right.
I get what you're saying. There is a cowboy that's available. Every guy wants an adventure.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be too domesticated. Safe.
No, exactly.
Everybody wants to know that they still got it. Like they could still go out in the world and compete. And if there was, God forbid, if everything were to fall apart, we all want to believe we have a little bit of jet weaver and it's like we could go hunt our own food and
or John Wayne.
That's the cowboy thing. And I get that. To me, that's been, if for no other reason than that right there, I feel like I can be a better support to you, praying for you, be a better friend.
Well,
because
that's my answer.
To me, I get it.
That's my answer. I mean, this is a super big part of the change in America. It's not ironic that our owner, Patrick Gotch, has brought in the John Wayne Museum right beside us there at the Stockyards in Fort Worth. Yeah. And it's all connected in my opinion.
Who's the next John Wayne? Because John Wayne was like...
Cody Johnson.
Why?
He stands for all the things that the image of John Wayne stands for. I got to ride with him in Colby Level the other day. I mean, we went and gathered wild cows and crossed rivers and
catch any pigs.
We didn't catch any wild pigs, but it was wild enough. We didn't need any wild pigs, but I think he is, and the other thing about Cody Johnson is he's attracting, or the crossover crowd is attracted to him.
Yeah.
The crossover crowd that wears the boots and that respects the lifestyle, but really don't know how to be involved. He's their connector.
The people who wear boots and go to the Houston rodeo, but for the concert.
Yep. and he's into rodeo, big time.
He rode bulls. He was like
he rode bulls. Now he ropes every day. He ropes every day. He's moved literally beside Colby Level, the reigning world champion team roper, and they rope all the time. He's entering ropings between concerts almost every day.
Him and my uncle are buds, and it's funny because my uncle is just...
Oh, he went to your uncle's church?
Yeah. He led worship at my uncle's church during COVID.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Tell it. So for my people that are just tuning in, tell them about your uncle and where that is.
Lone Star Cowboy Church in Montgomery.
Yeah.
And he calls Randy his pastor. And so,
I know, right.
So a guy that was rodeo ties, music ties, loves Jesus. That guy checks a lot of boxes and stuff like that.
Did I give you the answer that you, I mean, were you just curious?
No, that's it.
I mean,
No, that's that.
I didn't,
to me,
that required zero thought for me.
I love that. I love that because for somebody else that's going to watch you on the Cowboy Channel, no matter what you say that day, the theme is But now, let me add to that. I said Cody Johnson because he has such a reach into masses of people. Yeah.
Because of the crossover. But I want to believe that Sage Kimsey or J.B. Mooney or Stetson Wright, Chad Mayfield, before their careers are over, might be the guy.
Sure. Somebody may.
I mean, they're the guy now in our sport, but I'm talking about out into other cultures.
Right. The people that cross the
That's
the
exciting.
lines.
I mean, my insides are just jumping up and down, thinking about that prospect.
Well, Jacob was saying that the Marlboro Man is such an iconic figure in other countries.
Right.
That we don't really have someone that John Wayne did such a good job. He was the guy. And my concern is if we don't find another John Wayne, that we're going to lose.
Well, see, that's why I think that's what the Cowboy Channel's going to do.
Yeah, reestablishing what
we are going to establish who that guy is.
Yeah. Well, and there's no denying that people like J.B. Mooney that take the picture after the Reno win with a cigarette in his mouth. Yeah. There is a James Dean element to that guy.
Goodness. I love that guy.
Like, do you want to be a sissy your whole life, or you just want to put it all on the line for something? Like, there's something about that
man, he is so
you can watch that guy and you're like, so cool. I am such a wuss.
That's exactly.
I should demand more of myself.
Exactly.
I should demand more of myself. And watching that guy is an example of I need to expect more.
See what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, that's you and me. We're very confident in our masculinity, you and I. And then we look at JB and still have that reaction. That's what it can do for America. That's what it can do for the men and the families in America.
Yeah, it's worth it.
See?
It's worth it because I think Thoreau, he's an author, he said, men are dying deaths of silent despair.
Yeah.
They're silent about it, but they're desperate. They want to believe they're capable of more. I'm not going to be able to get through this. Like, I hope that you're listening to this on podcast through your headphones instead of the camera, because men like this. They want so deeply to believe that Jesus is going to happen by and go, you come with me. You're capable of more. Yeah. But they don't know that Jesus.
Yeah, I know.
They know the Jesus that says, sit here, sing this, do this.
Sit up straight.
Don't do that.
Quit fighting. Quit cussing. Jesus never said none of that, by the way.
I mean, I want to believe as men that we're capable of more. The problem is we're not hungry enough.
Yeah.
At that moment where we're like, do I want to depart out into the sea without knowing where the other side is?
Right.
Well, I don't know. I'm kind of comfortable here. And it feels like a lot of men have set back. They've kind of surrendered that dream. And I love. I mean, at a deep level, that connects to me. I hear you say that, and I'm like, that is a better description of what I've been trying to say.
So the core problem in America is the broken homes.
Yeah.
And think what that can do.
Men who will stand up and go, listen, I'm not going to smoke a cigarette and ride a bull, but I'm going to be at my kid's soccer game.
Yeah.
And I'm going to cheer, and I'm going to be excited.
Yeah.
Not because I'm the domesticated soccer dad.
Yeah.
But because he needs to know with all of what I'm capable of, I'm dedicated to him as a person.
Bet you.
And I'm not a sad little man. I'm a grown man. I'm capable of more, and you get it all, kid.
And life is an adventure.
If it's not, you're already dead.
You're dead.
I don't know how to end it.
I mean, we've got to.
That's it.
So the network that I work for, we've got the corner on the market.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, every day people come up to me.
The scariest, most heroic people.
Yeah.
Right there.
And the perfect example is every day people come up to me and go, the Cowboy Channel is all I watch. And I tell them all, I said, well, we've got you trapped. Nobody watches the news anymore. Nobody watches sports anymore. Right. There's nothing else on any of the other channels worth anything.
Right.
Nah, we got you.
Yeah, where are you going to
go? You can't escape.
Well, and I tell you what, in my mind, the reason rodeo has never, and I will say will never, become a major sport, now hear me on this, is because it's different and it's better.
Oh, I don't think
it's better.
No, I don't think it'll ever become a major sport.
But here's what has protected it in the worst possible way. Here's what's protected it from doing that. It's so insular, and it's not a culture of communicators. It's a culture of doers. They are rubber meets the road. Get your hands dirty. Replace your own. Replace your own tire type people.
I know.
And so it's going to depend on people who have the ability to tell that story in a way that the outside world can connect to it. It's the connectors of the world that are going to tell that story in a way that inspires the guy home to be a dad and to be a husband and to stand up for what matters and to stay in a home and fix it versus run. It's
That's it.
Okay. I can't tell you how much I appreciate coming by. Thanks for being here.
Man, you have opened up just when I didn't think I'd get more excited, you've opened up a whole new level of my enthusiasm, mainly because you could see, you've accepted this vision that we talk about here, and I believe in it more now after our conversation too. So
I look out Sunday mornings and I see a lot of men. I'm really fortunate that what we have here is a lot of men, and I love your clarity of don't give up on being men. Don't quit that. Wives, don't try to dilute your husband to the point he's no longer. That's the message of where we are right now as a society. Is don't give up on
a man,
the tools
and
that God
proud
gave
of
you.
it.
Yeah, yep.
Be a cowboy.
Justin, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.